Hello, and welcome to this presentation that will serve as an introduction to the Minnesota Frost. I'm Mario in Black, and in this video, I'll go over the Minnesota Frost and their history to help you get a basic understanding of the team. The Minnesota Frost play in Grand Casino Arena in St. Paul, Minnesota. The venue also plays host to the NHL's Minnesota Wild. For the first 2 years of the team's existence, the arena was called XL Energy Center, or as fans knew it, the X. The Minnesota Frost general manager is Melissa Caruso. Caruso replaced the first general manager, Natalie Darwitz, after the first season. Caruso worked with the league office in the American Hockey League for 15 years and was the vice president of the AHL's hockey operations division before she moved on to a GM role for the Frost. Ken Klee serves as the head coach of the Frost and has since Charlie Burgraff stepped down as head coach shortly before the team's inaugural game. Klee played several years in the NHL, mostly with the Washington Capitals. After his playing career ended, Klee spent several years coaching, starting with being the head coach of the U.S. women's national team for several Four Nations Cup tournaments. Among those Four Nations Cup tournaments was a victory in 2015. He also did coaching work with the women's under-22 team. After leaving the international scene in 2017, Klee worked as an assistant coach for the Syracuse Crunch of the American Hockey League. Minnesota is captained by Kendall Coyne-Schofield, and the alternate captains are Kelly Panik and Lee Steckline. I'll discuss them more when I get to the roster section. In the first year, Minnesota won the Walter Cup. Things were the same in the second year when they won the Walter Cup as well. In that first season, they defeated Boston in a thrilling 5-game series, 3-2, to take on the inaugural trophy. And then they defeated an upstart Ottawa team in year 2 in 4 games, after all 4 games went to overtime. Just like the prior video of the Boston Fleet, I'd like to go over the roster by each position group. I'm going to start here with the forwards and highlight a few of the players. I don't want to go over every player as that would make this video way too long. I'm going to start with Kelly Panik. Panik has won championships everywhere she's been. In college, she won 2 national championships at the University of Minnesota. She's won Olympic gold, 4 world championships, and 2 Four Nations tournaments, all while representing the United States. And this goes along with the 2 Walter Cups she's won in the first 2 seasons of the league. Panik is a strong two-way player and features on the top line quite often. Whenever there's a big play, it's not uncommon to see Kelly Panik in the middle of it. Next up is Grace Zumwinkle. Zumwinkle was a force in college, scoring 209 points in 171 games with the Minnesota Golden Gophers. During that time, she was called up to the U.S. women's national team and won a silver medal at the 2022 Olympics in Beijing. She burst onto the PWHL scene by winning Rookie of the Year in the league's first season. She dealt a bit with injuries in year 2 and took a slight step back, but this year she's back on it. She got called up to the U.S. women's national team yet again, and she'll be a force for the Frost and the U.S. women's national team's attack for years to come. Of note, her sister Emily also plays for the Seattle Torrent. Next up, I'd like to talk about Kendall Coyne-Schofield. KCS, as she's known, is the captain of the Frost and one of the faces of the sport. She is a 4-time Olympian. She won gold in 2018, as well as silver in 2014 and 2022. And she's also representing the United States in 2026 as of this recording. However, the Olympics are still ongoing, so I don't know what the final result will be. Coyne-Schofield won the Isabel Cup in 2019, representing Minnesota in the NWHL. This goes along with the 2 Walter Cup championships representing the Minnesota Frost. So in total, at the club level, she's won 3 championships, all with a Minnesota team. Coyne-Schofield won the Patty Kazmaier Award as a top college hockey player in 2016 during her time with Northeastern. Coyne-Schofield is a mother, having a child named Drew in 2023. She also authored a book called As Fast as Her, which I'll link below, and is on my to-be-read list, and I'll be knocking that out in the very near future. She's only 5'2", but she's known for her elite speed and is in contention with being one of the fastest skaters in the league. Next up is Taylor Heise. Heise was the first pick in the first PWHL draft. Heise was born in Minnesota. She got drafted by her hometown team, and she put up 13 points in her rookie season before going off in the playoffs, scoring 5 goals and getting 3 assists and becoming the first playoff MVP of the league. She backed up that year 1 with a great year 2 and was the team's second leading scorer. She had a big playoffs once again where she had 7 points, including an overtime goal, as the team took home their second Walter Cup. She's now one of the faces of the Frost, and she's found herself on the U.S. women's national team as well, winning a couple of world championships. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Britta Curl-Salemme as well. If you watch a Minnesota game, especially when they play on the road, it's likely you'll see number 77 in purple and white get booed whenever she touches the puck. Curl-Salemme was involved in anti-transgender and anti-queer social media activity in the past. Since she was drafted, it looked like she had quieted it down. She put out an apology video. But recently she joined an anti-transgender women in athletics organization, and everything kind of came to a head again. I'm going to link a couple of articles below. They're both behind a paywall, but they kind of go over the Curl situation better than I can. I don't want this channel to be about all this, but I think it would be very silly to ignore it, so I want to address it up front now. Moving on, I'd like to talk about the defenders next. First up is alternate captain Lee Stecklein. It's very easy to notice as he's one of the most imposing players in the league at 6 feet tall. She's a well-decorated defender, and she's the only player to win an NCAA championship and a world championship in the same year on 3 separate occasions. She has 7 gold medals in the world championships to go with an Olympic gold medal as well. As mentioned, she won 3 NCAA titles with the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and her list of college accolades is a mile long. If you go to her Wikipedia page, you'll keep scrolling to get through all of those accolades. She won an Isabel Cup along with Kendall Coyne-Schofield in 2019 representing Minnesota, and Stecklein was the MVP of the playoffs that season. Stecklein is a rock-solid defender that's won everywhere she's been, and she's the key leader for the Frost backline. Next up, I'd like to talk about a couple of Canadians, Kendall Cooper and Mae Batherson. Minnesota swapped out a lot of their defense, so I wanted to highlight these 2 young up-and-comers. Kendall Cooper was a standout at Quinnipiac and looks to be a future pick for the Canadian women's national team. Her countrywoman, Mae Batherson, has 10 points in her first 15 games of the 25-26 season prior to the Olympic break, and she may end up as a finalist for the Defender of the Year. In her first season, she had 3 points in 28 total games between the regular season and the playoffs, so those 10 points in 15 games are over triple of her total output from last year in practically half the games. The Minnesota Frost lost defenders Claire Thompson and Sophie Jakes this past offseason, so these 2 Canadian up-and-comers have seamlessly transitioned into the unit, and it's probably a reason why Minnesota keeps winning championships is that they can have this roster turnover and still look like an elite team. And finally, let's get to the goaltenders. Minnesota runs a goalie tandem with Nicole Hensley and Maddie Rooney. A lot of teams like to run a primary goalie and then use the backup to come in to give the primary goalie rest, or in a case where the primary goalie is injured. But Minnesota has 2 quality goaltenders that they give about equal amount of time to. I'll start with Nicole Hensley. Hensley had a great .921 save percentage in her time with Lindenwood in college. From there, she spent a year in Buffalo in the NWHL before joining the PWHPA. Hensley also spent time with the U.S. women's national team and won gold in 2018. She had 1 appearance in those Olympics, and it was a shutout win over the Olympic athletes from Russia. Her teammate, Maddie Rooney, was also a teammate of hers in the 2018 and 2022 Olympic teams. Rooney started all the other games on that 2018 gold medal winning team, including the triumph over Canada in the gold medal game. Rooney was a standout in college at Minnesota Duluth and was a member of the PWHPA's traveling team along with Hensley for a couple of years as well, before the PWHL started. Next up, I'd like to talk about the team's history. As PWHL Minnesota in year 1, they snuck into the playoffs as the 4th place team, getting in on the final day of the season. In the home debut for the team, Grace Zumwinkle would score the first hat trick in league history in a 3-0 win over Montreal. After falling behind 2-0 against Toronto, Minnesota would come back and win 3 straight games to knock out the top seed. Game 4 was the pivotal point as Claire Budarak scored in the second overtime to break a scoreless tie and force a decisive Game 5, which of course Minnesota would go on to win and advance to the finals. The finals were a back-and-forth affair, with Minnesota prevailing in a winner-take-all Game 5. After dropping Game 1, Minnesota rolled to 2 3-goal victories over Boston in the next 2 games. Game 4 would go to double overtime, and it would appear Minnesota would win the Walter Cup on a Sophie Jakes goal. However, that goal would be disallowed for goaltender interference. Just a little over a minute later, Alina Mueller for Boston would score and send the series back to Boston. However, Minnesota would bounce back and take the final game 3-0, outshooting the Boston by 44-17 to win the first ever Walter Cup. Minnesota got the first pick in the first ever league draft, and they drafted Taylor Heisey. She would go on to be that playoff MVP. Grace Zumwinkle was the top scorer with 18 points in the first year. Zumwinkle was Rookie of the Year as well as a second-team All-Star. Sophie Jakes was on the All-Rookie team as well. Year 2 would see the newly named Minnesota Frost once again slip into the playoffs as the final seed, as they've placed 4th in the standings yet again. The year began with controversy as general manager Natalie Darwitz was replaced in the offseason with Melissa Caruso. This was despite Darwitz assembling the championship-winning team in year 1. The Frost had a rematch of Toronto in round 1. This time they won it in 4 games after dropping game 1. In game 4, Taylor Heisey would score the game-winning overtime goal to keep up her playoff heroics from year 1. In the final, Minnesota would defeat the upstart Ottawa Chards 3-1. All games went to overtime. Emily Clark won game 1 for Ottawa in overtime, and then in games 2, 3, and 4, Britta Curl-Salemme, Katie Knoll, and Liz Sheppers each scored the overtime winners. It's notable that the Frost have lost all 4 of their game 1s in each of their playoffs, but they've won every single series. Claire Thompson was the top draft pick of that year at 3rd overall. Kendall Coyne-Schofield led the team with 24 points. Sophie Jakes, along with the newly drafted Thompson, were Defender of the Year finalists, losing out to Renata Fast of Toronto. Jakes was a first-team All-Star. Coyne-Schofield and Thompson were second-team All-Stars. And Britta Curl-Salemme was on the All-Rookie team. Next up, I'd like to talk about some fan tradition and culture. The state of Minnesota as a whole claims the moniker the State of Hockey. The state is notable for producing a ton of hockey players. In fact, 8 members of the Frost roster, as of this recording, are from Minnesota. Hockey is a huge deal in the state from the amateur levels all the way up to the professional ranks. A common chant heard at Frost games is, "Brr, it's cold in here. There must be frost in the atmosphere." This is a play on the team's name as well as the quite frigid temperatures of the Minnesota region. Minnesota's goal song is the classic high-energy Queen song "Don't Stop Me Now," and whenever the team wins, they play "Celebrate" by Pitbull. That'll be all for this video. Hopefully you got a good introduction to the Minnesota Frost. Next week I'll be talking about the Montreal Victoire. If you have any questions, comments, anything, please leave them in the comment section below. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great day.